Yes, hello. I guess we are live. I think it's been a long gap and it's great to have you here. So, this gives us 5 minutes to just chit chat and for me to check everything. If you're joining us later than this, please just forward the first 5 minutes is just us chatting. But nonetheless, it's fun to have everyone here. And Dr. Joss, it's so wonderful you could make it and you are here with us. Just give me a second to check everything everywhere. I assume on YouTube everything is okay. And yet YouTube is not showing me anything. Why is that? Is everything okay there? Dr. Joss, can you just message me? Because this is a problem of doing this after a long time. Yes, okay. YouTube seems fine. Good morning, Dr. Varun. Nice to see you first thing. Um, Still no news from Facebook. So, how did everyone's new year go? I hope you all had a wonderful time and are all set to start again. And I also hope you are not too disappointed that we are starting with me rather than another guest. We have just 3 minutes to go. Okay, let me check up on Facebook. Yep, okay, everything is fine. Thank you, Dr. Joss. Yes, cool, we are all set. I guess the long gap even made me a little rusty. This happens. I suddenly feel, okay, is everything okay or not? Okay, so, but it was a nice break. Did a lot of stuff. Have to catch up with everyone and find what you all have done. So I hope everyone had fun. I also think that many people have still not realized that the Tuesday sessions are back on, and not many have joined us yet. Well, they will join as we go on. We have just a few minutes, not a few minutes, just a minute, I guess. Okay. Yes. We also have one more video, and this was, I think, some of you. So thank you everyone for that, wonderful beginning and the wonderful year we had. It would not have been possible without all of you. And we are at the official beginning of the session. So, greetings and welcome to the first live stream of 2022. I hope you had a great holiday and the new year is going superbly well for you. Today, we have a slightly different topic, possibly unexpected because, me as a proponent of using social media by doctors, I'm always telling everybody get on social media, share. Well, and I still stand by that. But I have also started to realize that some things need a little consideration. We need to start thinking just how much may be too much. And now I have given this some thought, reviewed some literature, and added also some of my own experiences. And I have come up with this lecture and some basic framework, which I hope you will add to, and then it will be a useful setting for all of us. After considering this from many angles, I believe a discussion that takes into consideration the effects of any shared content on the source patient, if any, or the public at large, will cover the topic quite adequately if we view these in the context of the first rule that we have, and that is first, do no harm. So essentially, whatever we do, we should not harm our patients, we should also not harm the public, and that we will go through as the steps of this lecture. And also at the end of it, we also have a look at what happens to the one sharing, to you, to me, to all of us. What effect does sharing have on us, the amount of time and effort we put in? First, we'll start with of course, privacy issues. Let's just take a hard look at this picture. What comes to your mind? What are you thinking? Now, what if it was with this headline? And what if he was your patient? Did your thinking or did the feelings change in your mind as you saw this? If there was a change, well, it is our basic nature to assess situations, people, possibly make some judgments. But of course, we are lucky as doctors, we have already made one major decision, and that is that in no way are we going any judgment we make or anything about any patient is ever going to affect us or affect the way we treat them. But not everybody is a doctor. So what about others who saw this picture? What if it was, his banker, his insurance agent, some family member he who thought he had given up smoking? Maybe he's no more. And what about his children or grandchildren see it? So these are all the things that sort of come in our mind. And these are all the effects that sharing details of patients can have on social media. Now, you may wonder if all those bad effects, why am I sharing this? Because this is a stock picture. And I found that it has been shared with this gentleman's picture with around 5 or 6 diseases, which I'm sure he could not have had all. And it is also registered to somebody. So basically, it is what should I say? It is a picture that is taken for a purpose. This gentleman probably never had the disease and may not even have been a smoker, but the effects will be there, and the effects continue to be there on his life. Now, had he been a patient and had this related to a patient, of course, then the sharing would have been much more careful. But that effects on his life would have been there even long afterwards. And if you noted the date on that file, on that article, it was 2012. Now, I could find it with the first image search I did for a patient smoking. Now, many things might have changed, of course, in that gentleman's life, and yet that picture remains as a part of his identity. And this is what we have to remember will happen with anything we share. It will remain, if it is connected to the patient, it will become a part of their identity. There's truly no privacy once content is on the web. And this is not even considering what happens when it is on social media. But in today's world, we routinely give every app on our phone access to our lives. You might think, I mean, to our contacts, to our pictures, to videos, to voice, to almost everything. So I know many might think, oh, big deal. What is privacy is overrated. We are all the time giving away our privacy. And maybe it is, and maybe it is not. But the important thing is that we make the choice, that you make the choice, I make the choice, not just anybody, not somebody else. And it's a choice that is important enough that it has been included in the Charter of Human Rights, the fundamental rights by the UN, and almost every country in the world is a signatory of that. Now, when it comes to patient privacy, we are the ones who are supposed to take care of it. And it has been recognized to be a very important pillar upon which success of patient care rests. It's a non negotiable expectation because it's the reason patients trust us. If they stopped giving us the kind of details that they do now, we would not be able to give them the quality care that we do now. So, this is something that's non negotiable. We have to, at all costs, at all times, protect patient privacy. So, privacy is paramount. But unless we have a clear picture of what is patient privacy, we cannot protect it, of course. Now, I looked around, and here are the five components of patient privacy. First is physical privacy. It relates to the patient's actual personal space, physical dignity. The next is informational privacy that relates to patient's records. Then associational privacy. Who does a person have relations with? What sort of relations with? Family, friends, whatever. If we get to know that, we can let it come out. Decisional privacy. Their choices on religion, on the various political issues, on anything, anything that's a decision. And lastly, and most recently added, is the proprietary privacy, which includes a patient's genes, genomes, and tissue specimens. For all of us pathologists in this gathering, tissue specimens is very much there, and it is included in that. In the context of privacy, two words I have seen are constantly used together and maybe a little interchangeably, although they are not really the same. One is privacy, the other one is confidentiality. Now, privacy relates to individuals' rights of actual physical rights of uh, of safety. That's their privacy, individual rights. While confidentiality relates to the information. It's a little difficult to get around it, but this is a good example. A nursing assistant had shared a video of a patient in underwear on Snapshot. The patient's personal or physical right to privacy had obviously not been infringed upon because they were alone in a room. However, her right to confidentiality was because the video was shared. That is, the information about her was shared. Now, clearly, we need to be aware and protective of patient rights at all times. But this particular nursing assistant failed to do so and paid quite dearly. She's lost her job. She's been banned from any nursing job for the rest of her life, and she even received a 30-day jail sentence. When they asked her why did she do it, well, she said that the patient was giving her a hard time, and she thought, and they were having a tug of war on the item of clothing. And she just thought it was funny and she just thought she will get some sympathy from her friends. She did share it in a group, but somebody just took one of her own group people, took a snapshot of it, and appropriately shared it. And that is how action was taken. She reported it on the basis of that. Now, this is unquestionably the most unfortunate use of social media as far as the healthcare workers go. But not everything is that black and white, of course. So, why do we use social media? Now, this is definitely a topic for a whole different day, so we won't go in depth. But just to give it a summary, main things we would do is professional development, education, public health, and even directly interacting with patients and providing consults, something that was actually a lifesaver during the pandemic. And also, in a world where over 60% of the adult population is already on social media, it is the most effective way of connecting with patients, with the public, and of course, with other colleagues. And I personally think, I may be wrong, it's my personal opinion, but I really think it's impractical not to be there on social media. I do know that still some believe social media is a waste of time or something they could not be bothered with. So they stay off Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and the like and feel relatively safe. Now, if you are one of them, think again because every web based communication tool that enables interaction with others is considered to be a social media platform. Now, what does that bring us to? Now, this brings us to an dizzying number and a range of platforms. I don't think can even I tried to actually go through and identify every one of those. It was just too tiring. But here are some of the most commonly used platforms. We have, of course, messaging ones, which are WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, Telegram, then Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and all the regular ones. And a little less known one is, of course, ResearchGate. That's because the regular public content will not consider ResearchGate as a platform because it just doesn't bother them. But for us, we need to remember that ResearchGate is very much there. So, how does that affect any of us sharing? Now, are you sharing on social media? Well, to put this into context, if the content is question is being shared on any internet-based application, whether private or public, whether in a limited group or even a closed professional group, it is being shared on social media. So when you send the picture for a second opinion or to share information, irrespective of the size and the initial privacy of that conversation or share, or however well intentioned that might have been. Now, this content has to be deemed as having been shared and will need to meet the requirements of safeguarding patient confidentiality. Very often, when we are specifically, I think, when we are taking a second opinion, we tend to be not very careful because we are sending it to a friend, we're sending it to another colleague. We expect that they also understand the rules and requirements of maintaining that patient's identity. Now, this is something that doesn't just keep passing on. You have to take the time and actually ensure that at your own level, the very first person, as the first person in charge, it is you who has to take care and ensure that that detail does not go ahead. Now, overall, there are very few guidelines as yet existing on social media sharing. If you know of any of them, please share it with me. I would really be interested. But I found that the American HIPAA Act is a good basic guideline to go by. They have made some basic guidelines and listed the most common social media violations as per their records. And this helps because then it keeps us a little more wary of what we are doing and more aware of what we are doing. So, first thing is, of course, what they found most commonly is that posting of images and videos of patients without a written consent. Now, here we have to remember that the social media consent is an entirely different one from what we would normally take, say, to share a patient's picture or details, say, for a publication. Now, this social media has to be very clear and emphatic and say social media share. Otherwise, it's not valid. Posting of gossip about patients. It maybe you just thought something was funny, something that you heard may not have even been initially in any way harmful to the patient, but it is still not allowed to be shared. Posting of any information that could allow an individual to be identified, and this is irrespective of having a consent. So, even if a patient has given you consent to share details, you still cannot allow their identity to be known. Sharing of photographs or images taken inside the healthcare facility in which patients are visible. Now, this is something we tend to do very often. Now, if you, we have all seen it. A clinic is being photographed. There's some patients in the background. Now, unless you have actually taken signed release from those patients, their pictures should not be seen. It should be sufficiently blurred or removed. Because while you may think, what's the big deal? A patient is sitting in a dental clinic, for example, that patient may not want anyone to know that they were in the dental clinic. It's their choice. And then coming to sharing of photos or videos or text on social media platform within a private group, and this includes rather sharing of anything even on a private group, which they found as one of the things that people normally miss. And I guess that by itself clears a lot of doubt. Now, there are also some other factors that we need to consider. The definition of what we would have considered as adequate protection of an individual's identity has to be checked in terms of the current technology and what happened. Now, this is something that would be considered absolutely adequate before. Many of our well known journals have pictures like that published. Many of us have published pictures like that. And it was adequate. But now, today's computational abilities are different. We need to re examine this. Now, sitting at my desk with my basic Google search and my basic setting, I found 9 pages where this exact image had been shared in less than a second by just putting that picture into the search. Now, true that I did not find the patient's identity, but then I was neither looking for it nor equipped for it. But there are several entities that will be fully capable and also interested in finding details. I know that governments and there's a lot of effort going on to ensure that governments, corporations cannot just do that, but we are really not sure. So at our end, it is our job to see that they are safe. I mean, think of it. There are already governments who will not issue a visa, a long stay, a short stay, a student stay to anyone who has a health problem. People who do not have a good health may not get jobs. People who have had an infectious disease may not get an entry. Corporations such as banks and insurance companies obviously have vested interest to know if someone is a high risk for them, because they would want to know that someone is healthy. And of course, then the criminal element is obvious. I mean, they take people's computers. Now, we have seen this a lot where they actually take someone's entire computer literally on ransom by locking it and asking for a ransom amount. And people are paying it. Why? Just because it's inconvenient to actually have to, redo everything. Most of our lives, a lot of it is on the computer. But what if this same criminal entities had a way of actually finding more harmful details? Do you think they'd hold back? I don't think so. There'd be no reason. So there are a few ways. Sorry, you got distracted by a comment there. Okay. There are a few ways to combat these problems. First is by being organized and having a policy in place where you have to make sure that related material is not posted for at least 6 months, and that helps. The other thing is, before posting anything, rename that picture, that report, whatever it may be that was linked to a patient. First, rename it. In the sense, make a copy, rename the copy, and shift it to an entirely different folder. What tends to happen sometime when we just move things around, the computer records the original link, and that will keep on going on. So just see that all those possible links are removed. Another thing is, of course, if it's a very, very rare condition, you have to realize that an extremely rare condition that's found once in a blue moon in a population, if you're going to report it in a geographic location soon afterwards, it's likely to come back to the patient, even if unintentioned. So this is where a little bit of hard thinking also helps. Another thing is, never respond to a specific consult in an open group. Now this happens. You're on Facebook. Someone is asking you something in regard to a specific patient, and out of helpfulness, you may share it. Now, remember that the onus of ensuring patient confidentiality is not really on the patient; it's on you. So it is necessary that you tell that patient, whoever is asking for advice, to get connected to you at a personal level. Give them your own email, give them your own number, whatever you want to do, but definitely do not comment on an open platform. Now, having passed the first step, that is the privacy, can it do anything to the public? Now, I don't know. If you have been on social media, you will have noticed images like this coming up, tagged as violent or graphic content. These are coming up from dental and medical sources. I first noticed it, it didn't really register. At the end of the day, I was multitasking, one eye on my social feed, one on the email, so it didn't really register. But then it happened again and again and again. And suddenly one day it finally registered because I recognized the source. So I took the time, I checked because I was worried that a friend's feed had been hacked. But then after I opened it, I actually opened it and I saw no, it's just a lesion. Just that, it's just a lesion. Not particularly amazing, but an interesting enough case. So what was the big deal? But I had to pause and think. Then it sank. It's interesting to us because we are dentists, because we are doctors, because we recognize these. It may not be interesting to non dentists, it may be downright scary. And there's a 4 to 24% of the population who suffer from what is called health anxiety. The effect on them can be devastating because among the many signs of this condition, one is the belief that they suffer from every disease that they hear or see. So if they hear or see a serious carcinoma, that's what they're going to think they have. And that's real. And if you think it is only with the common man, no, this is what many of us have earlier known as the typical situation that happens to medical students. And I've seen it, why only medical, even dental students, although for some reason it's called the medical students disease, is that as we start studying pathology and we start learning about disease, you will inevitably have one or two in your batch who will suddenly begin to think that they have this rare, unheard of disease. And the teachers take time and explain that it is not so, and it goes on. It passes off for us, but it's real. These are fears that are real, and if we can have it, what the common man definitely can have it. Sorry, common man, woman, child, whatever. So, for most people, we have to accept that seeing and dealing with any disease is a frightening thing. And for many, it leads to two outcomes. There are two reactions they may have, two behaviors. First is they may have the tendency to keep going back for a medical or a dental checkup and keep seeking healthcare consults for this. Now, this is going to cause them loss, it's going to cause us a loss of time, and it's definitely avoidable. And the next is possibly even more dangerous because it's avoidance of treatment, avoidance of consult. You're so terrified of having a condition that you don't seek help even when you need it. Now, these are both very undesirable outcomes of us sharing on social media, which we may not be thinking about. And this is another one. Another very worrisome outcome is that to the general public, we may seem to lack empathy. Now, and this is something we do. I have done it. I mean, now I have to make it a point to be more careful. But we find a great picture, an excellent diagnosis, an amazing picture of a lesion, and we comment in appreciation. We are talking about the knowledge shared, but that may not be how it seems to anyone else who's in a non-medical, non-dental setting. What will a patient feel? What will the general patient feel when they see a comment like this? Are they likely to feel that we don't care, that we have lost empathy? I don't know, but I think it's something to actually think about. Now, these are also very easy things to avoid actually. First and foremost is avoid sharing clinical pictures on open platforms. I have this thing, what I call the friend and family test. So if you want to share a picture, show it to someone who is not in the healthcare system and see their reaction. But don't show it to someone who is going to be terrified. That's not a good thing to do. Someone a little less likely to be terrified. Maybe someone who has seen you studying or is partly at least aware of the kind of stuff you see, and see what is their reaction and make a judgment based on that. And while commenting, definitely comment with due care. Take a moment and think, what's going to happen if someone else sees it? What are they going to think? And really, in a lot of ways, I know we share clinical pictures to share knowledge. I begin to think it's better that you actually just share the name of the lesion and say that I'm sharing details of this so and so lesion. Now, check it on my closed group or on so and so closed group, where you can be more or less sure that no, at least no one who is not specifically looking for it is going to reach there. So, coming almost to the end, well, what about us? How does all this sharing work for us? How does it affect our lives? Well, the effect can be many, and they are both personal and professional. Now, our professional presence will impact, I have to say. I've written there, I think, will sometimes, but it impacts on our privacy, definitely. Because if you're using the same name, even if you have a different profile, say you have a, now I have a, on Facebook, I have a page, my Oral Pathology 360 page. I also have my personal profile. But frankly, there is no difference between the two of them. I have tried to separate them, but it's not practical for a number of reasons. First and foremost, I think for most of us, most of our friends are also within the same circle. They are dentists, they are doctors. So there's a great amount of overlap. And in the amount of people we know within that field, the few friends who are not literally get lost. So it tends to impinge in there. You can't really have the carefree, casual post where you could share a joke, share anything, and you be sure that it will not have a some form of a fallback on you professionally. That is not going to happen once you are professionally on social media, unless you have a profile that is not on your name. That's the only thing, and that's your personal profile. It just seems like a lot of work, of course. So just it is something that you need to keep on remembering, that this is what we do and this is what we have chosen to do. The other thing is that everything you do now on social media affects your reputation. Actually, even off social media can affect your reputation. There can be harmful effects, that because you have to remember that it can have a fallback on your job, because anything you share, anything you say, it has become fairly common for employers to actually just put in a person's name and check their data and what they have posted, what they have said, what sort of things they have shared and like. So this is all going to be there. And beyond everything else, everything that affects all the harmful effects of social media that others have to deal with, well, we are not immune, we have to deal with too. So this includes social media addiction, exhaustion, self-absorption, eye fatigue, tiredness, lack of concentration. They're all there, and we need to just be prepared for them. And remember that it can happen to us. We are not immune. So try and, as much as possible, keep your personal and professional life separate, and try and not do professional work during your personal time, if at all possible. It's a fact of life. Never forget you're a doctor. You have a standing in society that has to be maintained. So it's a 24/7 responsibility. Just act accordingly. Be mindful of the kind of content you like, follow, or share, even on your personal account. And remember, your digital footprint is permanent. It's not going anywhere. So just be careful again. And remember why you're there, and limit the time of use accordingly. So let me wrap this up with a thank you for staying with me for this long, and a rather self explanatory picture, I guess. And yes, let's get on with some questions and some comments. I can't wait to see what you guys have to say. So, sorry, guys and gals have to say. No one has to be. Um, so, let me stop this. And now let's see what is happening. We have some comments. Yes. Good morning, Dr. Divya. Let me go through this. And Dr. Shams from Pakistan. Dr. Akin Shipo. Yes, good morning. And sharing the link to the guidelines. Yes, I will definitely put it afterwards in the description. Yes. Good morning. Manusmurti. Hi. Yes. Yes, Professor Joss, thank you. I do hope it will have some effect. I think we do share a lot, and we have to think about what are the effects. So, does anyone have anything to add? I'm very, very keen to hear what you have to say on this topic. And I don't really know, is everything okay everywhere? I guess, yes, okay. Should we have separate WhatsApp accounts for private and medical use? Now, I don't think that is what is required. But what all my reading has told me is that basically, if you are going to be sharing anything, the minute it is leaving your phone, you need to remember that the patient, this is what I got to understand, a patient has given you particularly a right as their doctor, you or me or anyone, the right to their details. So anyone else in the fraternity, even in the same organization, is not necessarily given the same right. So if we are sharing, we have to see that it is basically there is no chances of the patient's identity being known. The thing today is, it is the easiest thing to take a screenshot of anything within a minute. So even if you have shared it with me, now I very often I get people sending me something asking me for a diagnosis, and then I realize it's not even their patient. It's something they picked up from another social media site or from another group, and they're just sending it around to see what they can find. This can be a problem if it is shared and shared and shared, and somewhere finally the patient's identity may get out, because it may come and reach someone who, even being a doctor, may actually know the patient. So I don't think you need a private account. What I think we need is being very, very careful about what we share. In terms of privacy is one issue, that's confidentiality is one issue. The other thing is, of course, if it's going to a group, of course none of us are going to share clinical pictures to a non dentist or non medical crowd. But in case someone does, that's the problem. I don't know if I answered your question. Please put in your comment there. Dr. Ganesh, thank you so much. Okay. There is currently, Dr. Akinshipo is asking, what's the guideline on sharing histology pictures? There is currently no specific guideline as far as sharing on social media. Of course, the old guideline is still in place, even if you are sharing a patient's details, which included actually their histology pictures. You have to see that identity is actually well. What should I say? The identity is not possible to be traced, but there is actually no. I know we actually share a lot of pathology pictures. Come to think of it, let's say even for a publication. Uh, Traditionally, we used to take permission to share a patient's pictures. I have actually not thought about it outside of the levels of social media. But you are definitely, this is something that is very interesting and I need to investigate. If I find an answer, or if someone else has an answer, I will definitely get to it. If otherwise, if I find the answer, I will definitely get it to you. Dr. Patil, good morning. Yes, good morning to you too. Thank you. What are the copyright policies for sharing patient's details? Copyright policies? Well, the patient has all the right to all the details, which is why they sign what they sign. The is a sort of a release for us to actually use those, and which is why we need their permission. And which is why, if you are if you are publishing that in a journal, the journal will ask you for all the permissions that you have got. I hope that answered your question. Dr. Dentist, Dr. Oh, that's okay. Dr. Kulkarni. I have experienced this personally when my father pictures were put up by surgeon on Facebook and it didn't go down well. I could not get anything about it and could not tell either surgeon or my dad. True. But it is a problem when it is shared. Dr. Hilly, yes, I know. We all do use WhatsApp quite continuously, but that is okay. As actually, as long as the patient's identity cannot be patient is identity is confidential, I think it is fine. There is no problem. Uh, but yes, you're asking me because there is this. Yes, the HIPAA says that even social sharing and there's a specific requirement. I think we need to begin to take that as. When required, maybe we need to start taking that and telling patients that, yeah, we're going to share this for informational purposes. But the problem here is, what if one of those people in a group basically takes a screenshot and posts it, say on Facebook? So this is one of the things, because it will eventually fall back on you. This is an interesting question. We have to really think about it. Yes, Dr. Akenship, pathologists are very active on Twitter. Yeah, we are. And there's a lot being shared. Actually, part of the reason I think that comment which I had posted was from Twitter, yes. And I made a point that it is a comment not in any way connected to my account, so that the identity of the person could not be found, of the person commenting. But yes, it's a lot happening on Twitter. And we need to begin to think about these things, because I don't really know whether anyone is thinking about it, especially since a special permission is required. Ash, yes. Thank you. That is true, Dr. Hilly. I think as long as, and frankly, no one besides the pathologist can recognize what is, which is part of the reason where, even if you say, when you share pictures on social media, say even Facebook never really comes down and covers a pathology picture, because to them it's just a lot of pink and blue, and pink and purple. It doesn't make sense. Only someone within the profession will know what that lesion is, or how dangerous, or whatever. But yes, as long as I think it is not an extremely rare lesion, in which case it can at some point come back to the patient. That's the only thing. But I think this needs a lot more study, and there's really not much content. And even the HIPAA guidelines are really very sketchy at the moment, and that's the best I could find. But these are things we have to think, because especially if we say something like Messenger or WhatsApp, where we have discussions, where, like you said, we discuss cases. If all of these are also social media, then does that mean that every time you need to get a actual permission from the patient? And how would that work? I don't really know. Very interesting. Something that I hope people will start looking at. And maybe we need to start looking at. If I find any more details, I will definitely share it. So, oh, what do you know? Yeah, actually early, not bad. Cool. So the practice did manage to make me finish faster. Goody. So, anything else that anyone is looking to find out or tell me, so that I will add it into the details and then look for it afterwards? And then maybe we can have a follow up discussion on this. We should also try and locate someone who is an actual ethics expert, possibly, and see what we can find out from there. Okay, I cannot see any more comments coming in. Are there any comments coming in? Okay. Yes, articles on medical journals are not that well protected by subscriptions, and there are many open source journals online. Yes, this was in fact exactly what I was getting at with that picture, which I could find the eight different places where that same picture had been shared. And that is one of the things, yes, because, but the only thing what I would think is that with a journal, normally only someone with a specific requirement will go to look. Now, there are two aspects. On the privacy aspect, of course, if there are softwares run by any corporations or anyone who's actually scanning, and of course they would be scanning medical journals, where to identify people, possibly have the what you can say face recognition softwares that are very powerful today. And so if that is there, then yes, even what is on the many journals that we have is definitely not sufficient. I think patients' identities can easily be found. I mean, if you really think about it, even when we put that small little black sort of a line bar across the eyes, it's like me wearing dark glasses and you not recognizing me. The person is not recognized by people who don't know them, but will be recognized by people who know them. And on the same way, facial recognition can definitely very easily identify people, because they are doing amazing things today with those, well beyond any power that we can imagine. So yes, even I think even our journals will need to actually look. In fact, I was surprised because that picture is from one of the original picture I got is from one of our very well established and respected journals. It has been shown in eight different places, but yes, it was not difficult. So that is one thing. As far as privacy goes, as far as people getting scared, well, I don't think they would. We cannot help someone who's going to go searching to find information. That is one of the things, and there is also a lot of freedom of finding whatever information you want, access to information. So there's a lot of conflicting stuff in there, and it's interesting, is all I can say. Very interesting to see what this is going to, how this is going to shape in the next few years, and what it's going to take happen, what is going to happen with this. Right. Okay. So I guess we are done. Right. Let me share with you what we are going to be doing next week, and then we will. Yeah, what's happening here? Okay. Okay. Right. So next week we have another interesting guest on Career Horizons. He's an oral pathologist who is now a who's running his own company, education company, Dr. Sanket Sharad Kumar. He is the founder of Hack Dentistry. Many may have known it. It is a very well followed, very well supported, and he has amazing. He teaches oral pathology through animations, which he does himself, and it's really very interesting. I'm very excited to have him here with us on the coming Tuesday, and I do hope you will join us. And thank you again for being with us, for spending this much time, and for all your support, all your comments, likes, shares, subscribes is what really keeps, well, the channel and me going. Thank you so much. And have a wonderful week. And we shall meet soon. Bye, everyone. Bye. See you next week.